When the HOA president trapped his ranch behind a locked gate, everyone thought Louis Sullivan would surrender. Instead, he flipped the script with a single strategic move that caught them all off guard. Louis Sullivan stepped onto his porch that crisp April morning with his usual cup of coffee, only to discover his world had changed overnight. A gleaming steel fence now stretched across his property line, complete with a locked gate blocking his only access road. The sign read, "Access controlled by Riverside Heights Homeowners Association." Louis froze. How can that be possible? Homeowners Association? What happened next? Stay with me as the twist in the story unfolds, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories. The 48-year-old former mechanic had left Houston 6 weeks ago, buying this small ranch outside Austin with his life savings. He'd envisioned quiet mornings tending his small herd, not a war with bureaucrats who'd literally caged him in. Morning there, Louis called to 2 workers in association polo shirts tightening bolts on the gate. "Talk to the board," one muttered without looking up. That's when she arrived. Diana Fletcher stepped out of her pristine white BMW, designer sunglasses perched perfectly, tablet clutched like a weapon. As community association president, she carried herself with the authority of someone who'd never been told no. "Mr. Sullivan," she announced without greeting. "You've been notified about your compliance violations." "Violations of what?" Louis frowned. "Perimeter barriers must conform to community guidelines," Diana replied crisply. "Yours don't. Until corrected, this measure prevents further infractions." Louis gestured toward his cattle. "That's my access route. My animals need the creek down there." Diana's smile was arctic. "The access easement falls under association control, Mr. Sullivan. It's in the covenant you signed at purchase." The gate slammed shut. The lock clicked. Diana drove away, leaving Louis staring at his trapped livestock. That evening, his neighbor Roy Martinez, a retired postal worker, delivered the harsh truth over kitchen table coffee. "Diana's been pulling this for years. Cross her and she'll make your life hell." "I didn't come here to get bullied by a committee," Louis replied. "Then prepare for battle," Roy warned. "She won't give you that key unless you play by her rules." 2 days later, Louis attended his first association meeting at the Riverside Heights clubhouse. Diana sat at the center table like a judge, her navy blazer and expensive jewelry announcing her status. "Mr. Sullivan," she said into her microphone before the meeting started, "you're under compliance matters." After 40 minutes of mundane discussions about landscaping and pool regulations, Louis was called forward. "Let's discuss your non-conforming barrier," Diana began. "It's the same fence I had in Houston," Louis replied. "It's functional and keeps cattle contained." "Functional isn't our standard," she responded smoothly. "Community aesthetics require uniform barriers meeting approved specifications." Louis opened his folder. "This is a working ranch, not a subdivision. My fencing serves livestock, not curb appeal." A board member cleared his throat. "Rules apply equally, sir. No exceptions." "You already make exceptions," Louis countered. "I've seen 3 different fence styles on my street alone. None match and none have padlocks." The room stirred. Diana's expression tightened. "Those cases are under review. Meanwhile, you remain non-compliant. Penalties continue until corrected." "Your fence blocks my water access," Louis pressed. "You're endangering my animals." "Satellite imagery confirms alternative water sources," Diana replied coldly. Louis laughed bitterly. "Satellite imagery? You think photos tell you how to run a ranch?" Murmurs rippled through the audience. Roy raised his hand. "Diana, maybe we give the man adjustment time before locking him out." Diana didn't even glance at him. "The association maintains standards, Mr. Martinez. If Mr. Sullivan wants community membership, he follows community rules." "And if I don't?" Louis asked. Her voice stayed level, but her eyes were steel. "Then we continue with penalties and, if necessary, legal enforcement." By the following week, Louis's mailbox resembled a legal filing cabinet. Daily notices arrived from the association compliance office, each more aggressive than the last. Fines started at $75 daily, then jumped to $150. During the next meeting, Louis listened instead of arguing, studying their tactics. A woman named Sarah Chen complained about a tree the association forced her to remove, glancing nervously at Louis mid-sentence. Afterward, Sarah approached him in the parking lot. "You're Sullivan, right? The rancher with the fence problem?" "That's me." "They'll grind you down until you surrender or leave," she warned. "Diana's been doing this for years. She doesn't care who you are, She cares about winning. Why does everyone let her keep winning? Sarah's answer was quiet, because most people avoid trouble and Diana knows how to make trouble expensive. The breaking point came on a windy Thursday. Louis discovered his cattle couldn't reach the creek. The new fencing completely blocked their only reliable water source on that side of the property. He climbed over the fence and rattled the locked gate hard, the sound echoing across empty pastures. No response. No one to answer. His phone call to the association office was futile. Other water sources exist on your property, the receptionist said dismissively. Those tanks are emergency backup, Louis snapped. During a heat wave they won't last a week. Do you want dead cattle on your conscience? I'll forward your concern to the board. That afternoon, Louis drove to Diana's immaculate house. She answered wearing a pale yellow blouse, her expression politely guarded. This isn't about fines anymore, Louis said steadily. It's about my animals. You're cutting them off from water. The association operates under uniform standards, Diana replied smoothly. Exceptions undermine community integrity. Community integrity? His voice rose. You're talking about a fence. I'm talking about living creatures depending on me. Her expression remained unchanged. Rules are rules, Mr. Sullivan. 2 days later, stress appeared in his herd. Several cattle stood by the fence, bellowing toward the unreachable creek. Louis hauled emergency water tanks, but the process was exhausting and expensive. Then came the harassment photo. Someone had photographed one of his slightly tilted water tanks from the road. The association letter claimed it was a safety hazard, requiring immediate removal. That's harassment, Roy said after reading it. That's Diana, Louis replied. The turning point arrived with a for sale sign on a small lot containing the locked gate. The half-acre strip was technically separate from both his ranch and the association's holdings. Standing there, Louis realized, if he owned that land he'd own the gate. And if he owned the gate, the lock would be his. But whatever he did next had to be fast and secret. If Diana discovered his plan, she'd find a way to stop it. Louis didn't rush to the real estate office. Instead, he visited Jake Morrison, a local attorney whose cluttered office smelled of old books and fresh coffee. They're operating within your signed covenants, Jake explained after reviewing the documents. That's the bad news. The good news? If that parcel is separate from association ownership and contains your only gate access, you'd have legal control. Meaning? Meaning Diana can't know it's you buying it, Jake warned. If she catches wind, she could block the sale or rezone before closing. Louis contacted his college friend Pete Lawson, who ran a property management company 2 counties away. Pete agreed to establish an LLC, giving Louis complete purchase anonymity. One evening, Roy found Louis studying county plat maps. You're scheming something, Louis explained quietly. By the end, Roy was grinning. That's brilliant and ballsy. Meanwhile, Diana seemed to sense change. She appeared near the fence more often, sometimes with board members, talking quietly while glancing toward Louis. One afternoon, as Louis repaired fencing, she approached with her usual clipboard. We've scheduled another compliance inspection next week. Louis didn't look up. Schedule whatever you want. My fence isn't changing. You're only making this harder on yourself. He straightened, meeting her gaze. And you're underestimating me. They stared at each other before she turned and walked away. The next morning, Pete called. The seller had accepted their initial offer. No counter, no questions. Closing was set for 3 weeks. It felt like the first real victory in months, but Jake warned caution. The deal's not final until signed. Don't let your opponent know you're holding the winning hand. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy. Louis kept his routine, feeding cattle, hauling water, casual neighbor waves, while his mind raced toward closing day. Sarah Chin caught him at the grocery store. Heard the board's been sniffing around that gate lot. Don't know their plan, but they're consulting a surveyor. That night, Louis called Pete. We need to move faster. I'll push the title company. We can enter escrow by Friday. Friday morning, Pete called again. It's done. Escrow's open, deposits down. We're locked unless you back out, and I know you're not. Louis exhaled deeply. Let's close immediately. Closing day arrived gray and heavy. Louis dressed normally, worn jeans, dusty boots, plain shirt, and drove to the title company's brick office. Pete was already inside, grinning. Ready to make Diana's life complicated? The process was straightforward. With the LLC listed as buyer, Louis's name never appeared on official documents. Pete signed on the company's behalf, and within an hour, the deal was sealed. The keys, heavy silver on worn leather, sat in the table's center. Pete pushed them toward Louis. "They're yours." Louis picked them up, feeling their weight. Not just metal but leverage. He left through the back door and drove to the ranch. Walking to the gate, everything looked the same but felt different. This was no longer an obstacle, it was his. The key turned smoothly. The shackle popped open with a sharp, final sound. He swung the gate wide, watching his cattle wander toward the creek for the first time in weeks. That feeling lasted exactly 2 days. On the third morning, Diana's white BMW stopped at the gate. She stepped out with 2 board members, heels clicking on gravel. "Mr. Sullivan, you've accessed association property without authorization." Louis leaned on the gate. "This isn't association property anymore. I own this lot. Check county records." Her eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. The association had first refusal rights." "Maybe they did," Louis said evenly. "But they didn't use them. The seller took my offer. This gate is mine and I have paperwork proving it." A board member shifted uncomfortably. "Diana, if that's true." She cut him off. "We'll challenge it." Turning back to Louis, "Don't think this is over. We'll contest everything." Louis didn't flinch. "Challenge whatever you want. Meanwhile, you don't control this access anymore." "I do." Word spread fast. Some neighbors congratulated him quietly, others warned that the board was seeking ways to make an example of him. 2 days later, the association filed a lawsuit challenging his ownership, claiming procedural irregularities in the sale. Instead of intimidation, Louis felt stronger resolve. This wasn't just about defending his land anymore, it was about defending every neighbor who'd been steamrolled and never fought back. The case worked its way through county court over several weeks. Each hearing drew curious locals, supportive neighbors, and HOA loyalists. Diana always arrived early, immaculately dressed, flanked by board allies. Victory came on a bright Tuesday morning in early summer. The judge ruled the purchase valid, the title stood, and the association had no legal authority over the lot or gate. Louis kept his property, and the association was ordered to pay his legal fees. Outside the courthouse, Louis kept his comments brief to waiting reporters. This was never about a fence. It was about the principle that you don't let someone take what's yours just because they think they can. Back at the ranch, he drove to the gate. Cattle grazed near the creek, water glinting in sunlight. For the first time in months, no weight pressed his shoulders. Roy joined him with cold beers. "Feels good, doesn't it?" Louis smiled. "It's more than that. Standing up once might give others courage to do the same." Weeks later, Louis noticed subtle but meaningful changes. Association meetings had shifted tone. Board members spoke more carefully. Neighbors raised questions without looking over their shoulders. Years of fear had cracked. The lesson was simple. The moment you stop letting someone else write your life's rules, you start living on your own terms. So if you're facing your own gate locked by the HOA, whatever it might be, don't assume you have to accept it. Ask questions, meet the right authorities, and push back. And if the fight is worth it, don't stop until you've that lock with your own key. Subscribe for more real stories that show you that your voice is everything and your rights matter and no one can interfere in your life unless you give them access.